I'm Bruce Matson, and we're going to be ranking and separating these rookie running backs into tiers today. Let's get into it and let's get to it. So we're going to be using the tier maker to separate these running backs in their positional values. And think of this way: when a player's in a tier, the players in that tier, they're ranked pretty close together, and that gives you an idea of where they're at in value. So it's not like if one guy's ahead of another guy in a tier, they're too far away from each other. The tier represents similar value in that tier. You can rank them how you want. And you know what? When I'm drafting players in the same tier, I might be diversifying between those players, so I can just separate my rosters up a little bit. That way my portfolio is evened out with the players I want. But let's go ahead, start ranking these running backs. The S tier, the stud tier, is going to be the one, the only, Bijan Robinson from Texas. And I don't think anyone's going to argue this, because he is being granted the generational talent of this class, the top running back, the top dog. He is the top running back in ADP right now per DynastyLeagueFootball.com, usually around the fifth player off the board in startup drafts per ADP. He's holding value, had 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons, did very good at the combine, showcased his athleticism. One thing someone could say is his athleticism does not stack to like players like Jonathan Taylor or maybe Saquon Barkley, but in his own right, from what we've seen on the field, we've been waiting for him to come out ever since he was blowing up the high school ranks. It is now his time to come out for the draft and be the stud running back. Tier A was a conundrum to think about because we have all these good running backs. This is a very good running back class. It is very stacked with talent, but I'm going to separate him a certain way. And per ADP, per his value right now, per what we saw at the combine, I think Jahmyr Gibbs needs to be in a tier of his own. 4.36 speed at the combine, showing that he's very explosive. Can catch the ball in the backfield, and he's demonstrated this at Georgia Tech and at Alabama. We see him on tape, and he's explosive. He's very solid in the open field. He's got a good dead weight. He can run it between the tackles too a bit. Slender frame, but good BMI as well. This is a guy that's going to get good draft capital, and per ADP is holding his value very well. He is up there in value, and there is a tier difference from ADP to the rest of the pack. So you kind of want to put the value into the ranks as well. Now we go to tier B, and we got a slew of running backs in this tier. This is where the good running backs are at that are not valued as high, but there's a lot of them. And the thing about this batch of rankings in this tier, compare them to other drafts before with running back classes, when a guy is ranked in B, C, or D, usually in other years they're probably up a tier or even 2. So if I'm in tier C, I could be in B or A. This is how good this running back class is. So don't think of anybody in these lower 3 rankings are bad just because they're ranked there. Really, this is a really good class, and we got a conundrum of players, and things are going to shift a lot between now and the end of the draft and even throughout the summer. The first player in tier B, Sean Tucker. Dude's got good speed. He weighed in a little bit light at the combine, but we know he's got track speed. He ran some track over at Syracuse, even though it was a little bit. He was a track star in high school. We saw him pull away on tape at Syracuse. Good rushing production in 2021. He was used more in the passing game. Ran more routes, caught more balls. Would have had more catches if he had better quarterback play going his way. Good volume there. Demonstrates he can carry the rock a lot, hold down the volume, and he's explosive. Now we're just waiting on draft capital because the metrics are saying yes. We just need the draft capital to say yes. And Sean Tucker's looking like a very, very good running back prospect. Next running back I want to talk about here that I'm going to throw in this tier is Zach Charbonnet. He weighed in at like 214 pounds at the combine, but I imagine he's going to be a little bit bigger than that at the NFL level, considering what we saw out of him at the collegiate level when he was at Michigan and UCLA. One of the few running back prospects in this class that played well with 2 collegiate programs. He's the first ever running back at Michigan to post double-digit touchdowns during his freshman season, and then transferred to UCLA after his 2020 season and posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And he wanted to stay an extra year there at UCLA to develop his game, to develop his skills as a pass catcher. Zach Charbonnet has the potential to be a 3-down back at the next level, has the potential to get good draft capital. He's a guy to keep an eye on. The next running back is shooting up boards, and the market is really trying to figure out how to evaluate him, and that's Devon Achane from Texas A&M. Did really well at the combine, showcased that speed. He's around 185 pounds. That's where people are stuck on because he is a smaller running back prospect. Indicates he might not get a full workload, but he's got the speed. He's also got the pass-catching prowess. Good production at A&M too. 900 yards in 2021 and then over 1,000 yards in 2022, catching the ball in both those years. So this is a guy that you can put out wide, you can put in the slot, you can have him catch passes out of the backfield, and you also have him run it a bit. His speed is a game changer. Draft capital will matter because if he gets drafted high, which he probably will, then his team is really going to be looking to use him often as a good jigsaw piece in the offense and as a good change of pace, as a good weapon for their team. And Devon Achane could be giving you a good return on investment in fantasy drafts this year. There's another hyper-athletic running back in this class, and it's Zach Evans, formerly from Ole Miss and TCU. This guy pops on tape. He's very electric, and he just had a weird collegiate career, especially in 2021 when he had that injury and then decided to transfer out and then transferred to Ole Miss. And then last year, he had to play with an elite freshman running back who stole the show there at Ole Miss, but still looked electric on tape. Still, when he had the ball in his hands, played very well. He did not compete at the combine. He did weigh in a little bit light in the pants. That's something to keep us interested in. But some of these guys come in a little bit lighter so they can run a little bit faster. So that's something to think of. But Zach Evans, when you see him run on tape, he's got that pop in his step. Another running back here, we're waiting on the draft capital. Draft capital could bump him down this board. Draft capital could bump him up a little higher. But that's something we're waiting on. One of my personal favorite running backs in this class is Kendre Miller. Thing about this guy is he blew up last year. Rushed for over 1,000 yards, was the talk of the town in the Big 12. It's very explosive. He's got size to his frame. He's a thick running back. He's dangerous in the open field. And he's a guy that could be a 3-down back at the next level. He's a guy that can be a cornerstone to an NFL offense. I feel like he's being a little bit undervalued right now. Probably because he didn't compete at the combine, but is a player you need to pay attention to. He had the injury that prevented him to show off late in the playoffs last year and prevented him to show off at the combine. But when you go back to the tape, you got a big, thick, physical running back who runs with a lot of pop, has good size-adjusted speed, and can pull away from defenders. I'm excited to see what happens with him in the NFL draft. And I have one more personal favorite that I'm throwing up here, and I believe he's being slept on, is Izzy Abanikanda. And this guy blew up this year as well. And he's also got good size-adjusted speed. He's also very dynamic in the open field. And I see him in ADP. He's down there a little ways, but he's a player that just jumps out on the tape. He's a guy who's physical. He's a guy that runs very well, and he turned it on this year. And I have him in this tier just because of the upside. And I feel like his size-adjusted speed, his size-adjusted athleticism will give him opportunities to compete, to be a 3-down back with his new NFL team. When I look at this tier, I feel like all these players have the potential to have a huge role in their next offense. Even Devon Achane, who is smaller, mainly because he's so explosive, mainly because he can catch the ball in the backfield. I wouldn't be surprised if he does have a season with over 100 catches. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Zach Charbonnet is a pounder and can run it between the tackles. Zach Evans, explosive. Kendre Miller can be a 3-down guy. Izzy Abanikanda showed that as well. Sean Tucker's fast, and he's explosive as well. And he's proved that at Syracuse in 2021. So we are locked in with this B tier and going to C tier. We have guys that would normally be in B tier, and they're very good running backs in their own right and might outproduce a lot of these guys in B tier, and maybe even Jahmyr Gibbs if they land in the right situation, get the right draft capital, get the right opportunities. So let's get cracking on these guys. C tier, we're going to start with Tank Bigsby. One of my favorite running backs coming out of high school is a high-end 4-star recruit. This guy's physical, and he's explosive on tape, and he will run guys over. The thing about that allows him to get a lot of workload at the NFL level if he gets the opportunity. This guy can be a 3-down back. This guy can hold it down. Played behind a bad offensive line at Auburn. Also played in the SEC. His stats would have jumped up if he was in a better situation, but you know what? He had that dog in him. He stayed there. He played well. He did the best he could. Now it's time for him to come out in the draft and show us where he needs to be valued. Next running back I'm talking about is Kenny McIntosh. I really wish he did better at the combine. I wish he had a faster time, but then we go back to the tape. We see him explosive. We see him catching the ball in the backfield. We see him being used in a PPR role that could help us in fantasy football, which is something good to see. I like Kenny McIntosh. I think he's got some upside. I think he can hold it down for us in fantasy. In any other year, he'd be getting more hype, but I think he's good to go, and I want to see where he goes in the draft as well. Another running back I want to talk about who's getting a lot of hype, I wish he had a better combine, was Roschon Johnson. 40 does not sit very well, but on tape, he's very explosive. He's very powerful. He can run away a little bit. He's a former quarterback at the high school level who was a high-end recruit and transferred over to the running back position. Very elusive for his size. Can be the hammer and can find that nail. And he's a guy that can hold it down as a 3-down back for his next team, or can be the short yards and goal line guy, which can hold value. We've seen that. If he gets touchdowns, if he catches a few balls, that can help us in fantasy. I got one more guy. He's a crowd favorite. Some people may have him in B, and it is Tyjae Spears. This guy's explosive. This guy has been climbing the ladder all offseason. This dude looked good at the Senior Bowl. He ran that one route that put the defender on skates that everyone's still talking about. Did well at the combine. Even though he didn't run, he had a good vertical jump. He has been rising ever since. He put a pounding on USC in the bowl game, running for multiple touchdowns. He's explosive. Could be a good piece in the right offense. Could be an explosive player in fantasy as well, getting you all kinds of points, especially if he's in a spot where he's catching the ball in the backfield. He's getting plenty of work, and that could happen with how electric he is, and he has very good tape. This guy has good vision. He can make things happen. He can create in space. Fun player to watch. Tier D are late round guys that I'm very into, that I will be pulling the trigger on in the 3rd round and 4th round of my rookie drafts, off and on, all off season long. First one I like is Chase Brown. Guy did well at the Senior Bowl. Guy did well at the combine. He did very well last year. One of the top runners in all of college football. Ran on Michigan. Was catching the ball in the backfield. Looked explosive. He's a fun guy to watch. And I feel like he's going to be a very, very, very good value to his new NFL team. The next guy I think is going to be a very good value to his NFL team will be Evan Hall. And he really increased the stock at the combine. I think this is going to allow him to get drafted a few spots higher. And I think in fantasy, you guys need to be looking at him because he catches the ball in the backfield. He also has size, which means he can be on for the short yards and goal line situations and be on the field when they need to be throwing the ball. This allows him to be a layered fantasy asset, get you those PPR points, and be getting those short yards and goal line situations. So that's a good running back you need to look at. And then we all are talking about Deuce Vaughn. 5'5", a little Mighty Mouse running back here, but very productive. Not many running backs match this production profile. You can tell he's athletic. Even though he didn't run at the combine, you see him doing backflips there. You see him on tape, and he's explosive. Very quick with the vision, too. Very decisive as well. Could be an interesting prospect to look at. And at the price tag in rookie drafts, you're looking at the end of the 3rd round, early 4th round. There's not much sunk cost to worry about if he doesn't hit. One of my favorites over the last few years has been Mohamed Ibrahim. He's been dealing with a torn Achilles, and that prevented him to come out of the draft earlier, but came back last year and really put it together. Rushed for over 100 yards in almost every single game last year. Was very productive. He's also thick and can be a pounder between the tackles. Will be a late round guy and is a guy that could climb the depth chart late in camp and be a contributor. Another guy I like over the last few years, and I thought he was going to come out last year, was Eric Gray. Looks good on tape, moves laterally very well, and is another running back that could find a spot on the roster and just climb up the depth chart and be productive. And I got one more running back, and for some people he's ranked a little higher, but there is a red flag that worries me, but he was very productive, and that's DeWayne McBride from UAB. The thing about him, though, is he was productive, but he only caught 5 passes in the last 3 seasons. I am worried about his role in the passing game. I'm worried about his ability to put up PPR fantasy points. Also want to see where he goes in the draft because he is from a G5 school, a smaller program. Sometimes G5 players don't transition right away. They're wild cards, and that's something I'm taking a look at. But those are our rankings here. We got them ranked S tier, A, B, C, and D. Pretty solid here. We got our top guys, our low guys, a little bit of everything from every round of the rookie drafts. But let me know in the comments below who you got ranked where in your rankings. Make sure you check out dynastyleaguefootball.com and 4for4.com for more fantasy football content. Make sure you tap this video right here if you need more help with your dynasty teams. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.